This is Vietnam Rising's half-season break to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, and this is your host Minh Thâm. Welcome back to another episode of Vietnam Rising. I'm super excited to have another solo episode to chat with you guys about what's been going on with Vietnam Rising, and get a little bit of recap. A year and 4 months ago, it was when I first started to have the idea of making Vietnam Rising, and I honestly didn't really sure I should do this because if you might listen to some conversations with the guests, then I'm not from a media background. I'm from a very brick and mortar industry, which is logistics, but I just like to communicate and talk to people, and I really like to get out of a conversations feeling like I've learned something new about myself or the other persons or about anything. I don't know anything about podcasts, and I was really scared of going on podcasts until I actually got invited to be on a different podcast, which is hosted by my other friend Nemo or Niema in Singapore. He had offered a one-on-one coaching sessions, which is recorded and published as podcast episodes. He was able to help me to get through the biggest obstacle for me to starting it, which is the fear of rejections. I was really worried about failure. I was really worried that whatever I'm putting out there, people are just gonna laugh and ignore it. And that fear was what really holding me back to just try and do this. And I wouldn't spoil the episode. You can go check it out on Outlier, the Trailblazers podcast by Nima Ashong. So in January 2020, I was able to record the first 2 episodes with Jiho, Jeff, and Lam, both of my very good friends, and I'm very thankful for all of them to be supportive and become, the kind of like a guinea pig for me. Because I honestly, I couldn't listen back to those episodes at all because I kind of feel it's kind of cringe. Thank you for being very supportive, and thank you for letting me try out my new learning skill on you guys. And I think for the past year, it has been a great learning experience for me just to learn how to open up people. If you really look into our entire first season and now the second season, you will see that I've learned and adopt and create much newer, better format every single time. We started off as a normal business interview where people just gonna, answer the questions. And now we have evolved in what I envisioned to the podcast, which is a good conversations, wholeheartedly between friends who are able to share a lot of insight together on these sessions. And so far, a lot of people has been reaching out and telling us that they really feel like they are being connected, and they feel like they are in the conversations, being the third person and listening to a friend's conversation. And that honestly is the greatest reward that I've heard, because I honestly want that to be what people think about the podcast. I'm just excited to be here, celebrating our 1-year anniversary together. If you have been here from the beginning, and thank you. I just want to say thank you for all that, because I'm sure some of my first interviews are not very easy to watch, but you pulled through, and now you're here enjoying our first year anniversary. Thank you guys for listening wherever you are, Vietnam, US, or anywhere in the world. And thank you for celebrating and enjoying the Vietnam Rising podcast. So this is our big learning in the process of making Vietnam Rising. People actually clamp up before camera a lot. You would think that everybody would become very comfortable with camera since we are the generations of selfie and mobile phone. But no, people still very not comfortable or not their true self in front of camera. And what we realized is that our guests become clamped up and they were not their best self when that happened. Before that, if we were doing a rehearsal of a pitch of what they do, they would perform excellent. But then, if we have that clap coming in, their pitches become a disaster or not as good as it should be. So, by learning that, in the process of making Vietnam Rising and like Taurus right now on season 2, we don't do that anymore. When the guests coming in, we just introduce them to the seat and start the conversation right away. Oftentimes, the camera is already on and we record everything because we want to make sure that they are comfortable and they are not feeling pressures of the camera. Also, a bit of whiskey or some gin tonic really help with some people, and that including me too, because I'm actually not very good in front of the camera, and yeah, I realized that 1 or 2 glasses of whiskey has been really helpful for me just to relax, hang out, laughing, and don't care about how I look or whatever, and just focus on the conversation itself. So that's my big learning for the first year of Vietnam Rising. Make people comfortable by not letting them feel like this is for a pre-record purpose. A year after that, and we're able to host our first podcast meetup. And in this podcast meetup, I don't want it to be a fan meeting, I want it to be somewhere that people can network and really find values and learn something new from each other. And that's why we came up with Brain Picking, which is a networking event where people are sit down in the groups to discuss a chosen theme. Those themes are hosted by our podcast guests, the guests that are features on the Vietnam Rising podcast before, and they are bringing their own theme or specialized topics into the discussions. And we're looking forward to do it as a monthly or bi-monthly event in 2021. So we would postpone that hopefully into April or further to host our second brain picking event. If you are in Vietnam and you're in Saigon, and if you're interested, please check out our Instagram and Facebook. We will notify you when we are hosting the event. And yeah, feel free to register and come join, hang out with us. So I'm in Singapore right now, but that doesn't mean that I stopped doing podcasts. I'm actually on the process to do maybe a limited series interviewing businesses, people in Singapore that might be related to Vietnam market as well. And so far it's been great. So maybe between season 2 and season 3, we will have a limited series about Singapore. If you're curious of how did I do it to travel from Vietnam to Singapore during the pandemic, then yeah, I'll share a bit about the journey. So I actually have to apply for something called ATP. It's a Access Travel Pass, which Singapore granted for people who coming from 6 countries that are handling the pandemic very well, which is Vietnam, Vietnam, New Zealand, Australia, and then 3 other countries. Getting this A to B, that means that I don't have to quarantine when I get into Singapore. I only need to stay isolated in my hotel room until I get my test result back. And that was estimated to be around 1 or 2 days. However, my process, luckily, it was only 6 hours. So basically, I landed at noon on Sunday, and I was able to get out of the hotel by 6 at night because my result came back, and yes, obviously it was a negative. I actually did get rejected twice for my applications, and I think it's like an automatic reject because I applied it and then like the next day they already rejected. But I was able to appeal and present my reason to come as well as like my supported documents on why I'm coming, etc. And yeah, finally they able to give me the ATP I wanted within the week. So the entire process of applying 3 times, getting rejected, appeal, all that is within 1 week worth. And yeah, I was able to get my ATP. However, my path to going back is gonna be so much more difficult since Vietnam recently has an outbreak, as well as they are very strict and they don't have any kind of like exceptional to anywhere. Anybody coming back needs to have a approved letter from the government, even when you are a citizen, and you will need to quarantine about 14 to 20 days, 21 days from any countries. No exception, like not even Singapore or at all. So I'm just making up my mind and just gonna be here for a few months. And yeah, I'm gonna just use the best of my time in Singapore, having my creative break. That's what I'm calling it. And yeah, and just enjoying learning about the Singapore business scene. And maybe we might have a little limited series about Singapore. I already did a few interviews already, but yeah, I'm excited for you guys to see and to have something changing, a new update for Vietnam Rising, So best of luck to both countries who are handling very well in the pandemic, to keep it that way, and for everybody anywhere to be safe and healthy so we can thrive through this pandemic together. I would love to know, what else do you want to hear on the podcast? Do you like to listen to more interviews, or would you like to have more of these private conversations with me? Let me know in our email, vietnamrisingpodcast@gmail.com, or to any of our social media handles in Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. It's all called Vietnam Rising. And yeah, happy anniversaries, guys! Thank you for being here with me for the past year. And I'll see you in the next episode.